Hello viewers! In today's video I'm going to introduce you to an app called Invoice Ninja. Many of you guys have asked for it, and it is also a continuation of my new series of software for small and medium-sized businesses. Invoice Ninja, as we can see here from their web page, is quite a mature invoicing application. It goes quite a bit beyond just invoicing. It also provides facilities for quoting, for time capturing, for tracking your expenses, and so on and so on. It is quite a complete piece of software. And if we scroll down, you can actually see what the main features are: invoicing and payments, time tracking, banking sync, and tracking also vendors and expenses. It integrates everything like a proper ERP solution, although it's not complete ERP anyways, but let's just leave it at that point. You can really customize it to an extent which is quite remarkable. I have tried quite some time to get this piece of software running in a Docker or container environment, particularly on Synology, and failed dismally. One day, one of my German members actually stood up and provided me with a functioning Docker Compose script, and really thanks go out to Peter. You know who you are. Based on his Docker Compose script, I added a few nice things like, for example, health checks and so on to make this thing a little bit more complete. Also caching, for example. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to actually install this in a container environment on Synology. And after we have installed everything and everything's running, we will have a look inside the application. We will log on, we will familiarize ourselves with the whole environment and put in the first important data. And of course, we're going to play with it a little bit. And if you find that this video helps you or it's just entertaining, it would be awesome if you could leave me a like on the way, because that helps not only this video to place itself properly in the YouTube algorithm, but also the entire channel. But now we're going to have a look at the installation of Invoice Ninja. Enjoy it. Let's now turn to the installation of Invoice Ninja in a container on your Synology. Of course, as usual, you can use any other container host than Synology. However, the ways how to create mapped folders and, for example, also how to find out user IDs or group IDs is a little bit different if you use a straight out-of-the-box Linux host. My explanations will be about Synology. As usual, I will provide you with a downloadable file, a zip file, which you can get from the respective link in the video description. And if you unzip this, there will be two files. One, of course, the Docker Compose file, a YAML file, and a vhost configuration file for Nginx. How to use these, I will explain now in the following section. Before I start, I would like to reference two videos. If you are completely new to containers on Synology, I would recommend that you watch this video, because in that video I am explaining what is Container Manager, what is the difference to Docker, and how to install the whole thing on Synology, and how to configure a few things left and right, which make life much easier. And once you've watched that, many things which I'm explaining in my videos will just be clear as mud. The other video I would like to reference is about MacVLANs. I am using MacVLANs extensively in my videos, and if you are new to that topic, I would also recommend to watch this video here. It's called the Ultimate Guide to MacVLANs, and it is 30 minutes of compact information about exactly that topic. What are these things? What are their benefits? how to calculate IP ranges, and so on and so on. And once you've watched that, you will maybe not be a real expert about this, but everything I'm explaining in these videos will be much, much clearer. And also you will end up with a configuration which you can use to make these things run, which I'm explaining here, without much fuss. So enough said about all these things. Let's dive right into it. And as I said before, one of my viewers, Peter, has created basically the root for this Docker Compose file, which I'm going to show you now, and I have enhanced it in a few places. Let's have a look at this Docker Compose file. We have it right here, and let's go through it top to bottom and look at the places where you have to adjust the thing to your own requirements and to your own settings to make it actually work on your side. The whole thing starts with an Nginx service, and you might say, I'm using a reverse proxy and yada, 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 and I don't need that. Trust me, you will need it, otherwise it will not work. Sorry for the clear words. Okay, let's start with the service. We have to create two volume mappings. One for the vhost.conf file, which I mentioned earlier, and one for a so-called public folder. Let's quickly do that. Go over to the Synology, your DSM, open the file station. Go to the Docker folder. This has been created automatically when you installed the container manager on your Synology. And let's create a new folder for Invoice Ninja. I already have a functioning Invoice Ninja installation on my Synology. I don't want to destroy that. This is why I call this Invoice Ninja. No, don't correct it. -demo. And now let's go into this Invoice Ninja demo folder, and now we have to create two subfolders. Let's start with the first one, it's called config, and the next one, which is called public. And as we saw in the file, in the script file, we have to provide a particular file, the vhost.conf file, inside the config folder. In order to do that, double-click on config, and now I assume you've already unzipped the download. Now you have two files. Let's go over to my Finder, and you have the Invoice Ninja demo file and the invhost.conf. Grab this invhost.conf file and drop it into your file station, just like I did it, and you don't have to change anything here. Everything is prepared for it to work 100% in that configuration, which I'm going to show you now further on. One little thing, we have to most probably override the volume mapping, and I'm going to explain volume mappings quickly. They are in general in Docker Compose separated into two parts. The right hand part, which comes after this colon here, describes the path inside the container, and you never touch that. The left hand side, however, is the mapping on your physical container host. And to get this path from your file station, just go onto this newly created file, right click on it, click on properties, and here next to location you have the entire path. Mark it like I do with your mouse. Now press Command C on Mac or Control C on Windows. Now the whole thing is in your clipboard. Switch back to your script. Mark everything like I do with your mouse again up to the first colon. And now press Command V on Mac or Control V on Windows, and you will have overwritten everything with the actual path. The same you do here with the public folder. I'm going to show it quickly again. We go back one folder higher, right click on public, click on properties, and here we have the proper path name, Command C, Control C, back to the script, mark everything to the first colon, and Command V, Control V overrides that with the proper path. Good. Next up is the port mapping. Since we are using Mac VLANs, port mappings are not relevant anymore for us. You can still have them, they don't hurt, but they don't have any function. Let's just remember that this Nginx service will later on listen on port 80. Now for the Nginx service, we have to provide an available IP address out of our Mac VLAN range. If you don't know what's currently available, just quickly go over to Portainer, click on containers like I did already, and here you can sort according to IP address by clicking on this column header, as I just do either ascending or descending. And this way it's very easy to find out which IP addresses are available. Let's go back to our script, and as I said, please provide this IP address here. Next up is the database service section. Also here we have to provide a volume mapping. This is called data. Let's quickly do that. Go back to our file station, create folder data. And as before, we need the proper path name, right click, properties, and so on like I do here. Copy it in the clipboard, mark everything up to the first colon, paste it, and you're done. Next, we have the environment section, and here you should actually adjust MariaDB password and MariaDB root password. One little word about the database which I have chosen. In the original Invoice Ninja documentation, they are using MySQL, but I have decided, or Peter has decided, to use MariaDB, and this works just as well, even a little bit better because it's not as finicky as MySQL. Okay, you should adjust these passwords with something which is not as easy to guess as what I have here, of course, but it's a demo. So the next point which we have to look at is PUID and PGID. This basically is mapping for access purposes. Since we have created this volume here with a particular user on the Synology, we have to basically give this container the right or the access permission to access this folder. And this is done by mapping this PUID and PGID. Now, you will wonder how to get this information. That's also very easy. Let's go back to our DSM, open the control panel, and now go over to Task Scheduler. Create a new task, a scheduled task, with a user-defined script. Give this task a name. For example, get PUID. And the user which you have to select should be or must be exactly the user which you used earlier to create the volume or the paths for these volume mappings. Take away the enabled tick mark. We don't want to run this script or this task all the time or on a schedule. Go over to schedule, click on run on the following dates, set this to a day in the past, and repeat should be do not repeat, because we only want to run this once, because from then on we know our PUID and PGID. Now go over to task settings, and in this text section here under user-defined script, enter ID as the command which you want to run, nothing else. Click on OK. Now put your mark back onto this line, because usually you've lost it now. Not yourself, but this marking here. And click on action. No, now click on run. Yes, we want to run it. Of course, this is why we are here. Now mark this line again, click on action and view result. The result should pretty much look like this here. However, the result next to UID will most probably not look like this one here, but you will get most probably 1026, 27, 1027 or something similar. But this is what we want to know, and the group ID is 100. Now, in your mind, put a P in front of UID and in front of GID, and you know what to enter where. Go back to your script and adjust PUID and PGID accordingly. Now in the next network section, provide an available IP address from your MAC VLAN range. Next up is the cache section. We will be using Redis, and I have decided not to persist any of the Redis data onto my Synology disk. So each time the containers are restarted, Redis will be initialized and start from scratch. Perfectly okay for a cache. Here provide an available IP address from your MAC VLAN range in the network section, and now we can head over to the actual Invoice Ninja app section. Also here we have to provide another volume mapping. Public we already have. Now we have the volume mapping for storage. Let's go over to our file station. Inside the Invoice Ninja folder, click on create folder, and now it is storage. Good. Now right click, properties, copy this path next to location, put it into your clipboard and mark this up to the first colon, paste it, and you're done. Make sure that the folder for public is also adjusted according to what you created earlier up under Nginx. Just make sure, otherwise the deployment will not work. Now let's go over to the environment section here, and there is one very important thing which you have to do right now. And this is in particularly the application key. The variable is called app_key. And in the line above, there is the command line which you have to, or which you can use to create this app key. So let's just mark this like I do, put it into your clipboard, and now unfortunately we have to use a command line like this. Now let's log on to the Synology with SSH. Here we are. And since Docker or Container Manager on Synology runs with root privileges, we have to prepend this command with sudo, like I'm doing now. And now we can paste it from our clipboard, and we have our command line here. Let's send it on the way. We have to provide the proper password. And I have, of course, done this before just to test it for you guys. But if you do this for the first time, the Container Manager will download the whole Invoice Ninja application. And this can take quite a few minutes until you get this output. But once you have it, mark everything like I do from the base 64 word up to the equal sign at the back, put it into your clipboard, and now paste it here. I don't know exactly what the app key does inside Invoice Ninja. I assume it's being used to encode your passwords and other things which are protected. So it's always a good idea to get your own application key. Next up, we have to look at the application URL. Right now, I have set it to the IP address of the Nginx service. However, if you make this application available via the internet or via a properly configured host name, you have to adjust it here. Okay, so is Docker true? This is also an environment variable which seems to be important to make Invoice Ninja aware that it is running inside a container. Everything else is supposed to be left alone, except for the database username and the database password. If you have adjusted this in the section above, then you have to adjust it here accordingly. Also here, adjust the POID and PGID if necessary. Okay. Then we have the SMTP section for sending emails, and each time you want to create a new user, it wants to send a confirmation to exactly that email address which you provide there. This is why it's very important that at this point in time you put in your proper SMTP credentials here. Lastly, we have the section for the initial login. This is basically creating a first-time user for us to actually properly log in for the first time into Invoice Ninja. And you can either later on delete this user and say goodbye to it, or you can actually put in proper data at this point and also adjust the password to something which is not as easy to guess as what I have here. Geheim, by the way, is the German word for secret. Also, don't forget to provide an available IP address at this point here for networks, and also adjust the name of your Mac VLAN in this section where we are right now, because most probably your Mac VLAN will not be called MVL-200. Once everything is done and dusted, save your changes so that you don't have to do it all again should something go wrong. And now we can, in the next step, copy everything which we have here and create a stack inside Portainer. To do that, press Command A or Control A on Windows to mark everything. Now put everything into the clipboard with Command C or Control C. Head over to Portainer, click on Stacks and click on Add Stack. I'm going to call mine Invoice Ninja-demo. You can call it whatever you like. Now place your cursor inside this web editor and press Command V or Control V. Now everything which we had earlier in our text editor has been pasted in here. If you want, you can do a double check whether you have adjusted everything as I explained it earlier, and if everything is still correct, which it should be. And once you're happy, you can click on Deploy the Stack. Since we already have downloaded the Invoice Ninja image by creating this key earlier, this should not take as long, but you will also have, or the system will also download an image for Nginx, one for MariaDB and one for Redis. So if that takes a little bit longer, don't worry, it will definitely come back. Now click on Deploy the Stack. Wait until it's done, and then later on we should see actually our stack up and running. Now you will find your Invoice Ninja stack here in the list. Mine is called Invoice Ninja-demo. And your containers should look something like this here. The reason why the Nginx container takes a bit longer is the health check, but as usual, that should not be a problem because Nginx is quite robust. Now, I suggest that you definitely, although everything is in status green and running, you should definitely have a look inside the logs, and particularly here for the app service. Let's do that quickly. And what we see here is something I did expect actually. It can't write into the storage app folder. Why is this? To explain that, let me just open our terminal session again. And since we did volume mapping, this error message tells us that basically the local site on our container host is not writable for the container itself. That is a little niggle of Synology because they have certain proprietary permissions put on top of the Unix permissions. I'm going to show you what it is. Let's just quickly go over to that volume. And let's have a look here. And as you can see, there are these little plus signs at the end of these permission strings. And that tells us that there are particular add-on permissions basically on top of normal Unix permissions, and that prevents this container to be able to write. There is one exception, and this is the database part. And for whatever reason, Postgres and MariaDB and maybe even MySQL, I don't know that right now, have these containers have found a way to get around this. However, for config, public, and storage, we will have to adjust this right now. And I haven't found a different way than doing it via chmod 777, which is ugly, but as I said, I haven't found any other workaround for that. This is why we're going to do it right now. If you have found another way, please be so kind, leave me a message under the video description in the comments and explain how you got it to run. Chmod, chmod, -r, recursive, 777, and now the folder name. It starts with config. Let's do the same for public and for storage. And once this is done, we should actually see that the preparation of our app container will continue, as you can see here. And further down, we see lots of activity because this thing is now creating its own data, writing things onto our volume and creating tables inside the database. And now we should actually see some kind of success messages telling us that certain processes have started and that it is ready to handle connections. Of course, we can have a look inside the other containers as well, like in the cache. Ready to accept connections TCP, that's fine. Don't worry about this first warning thing. It is, first of all, a warning, and secondly, I have no idea. Well, they suggest us a workaround, but I have no idea what it does to Synology if you follow their workaround, because I also don't like to actually fiddle with intricacies which are Synology specific on the operating system side. So let's leave it like this, and I'm pretty sure it is working nevertheless. And if you have tested it and everything is fine, also leave us a comment and tell us what you did. Let's go back to the container list. Now we had a look at the first two. Now let's look into the database container, whether everything's fine here as well. That also looks good, otherwise we wouldn't have had success messages from the app container. And lastly, let's have a look at Nginx. And that thing is also ready to receive our login. In the next section, we will have a look inside Invoice Ninja, Nginx anyways, and familiarize ourselves with that thing. Before we continue, with this video, I would like to say a few words how you can support this channel. If you like what you see, it would be awesome if you would support us. You can do this in several ways. One is, for example, with Patreon memberships. I'm offering 3 membership levels, and all my Patreon members can enjoy my videos completely free of ads. And I'm also responding to your comments and questions on Patreon with priority. There are 2 further membership levels, Plus and Plus Plus, and they give you 10, respectively 25% discount on my consulting rates. And if you would like to book a session with me, there's a link in the video description. Also, the other way to support us is with the completely free of charge YouTube subscription. And if you haven't done so yet, please take your time to click on subscribe now. And don't forget to ring the bell, because then you will get a notification each time I'm releasing a new video. And once more, if you like this video, it would be awesome if you could leave us a like right now, because that will not only help this video, but also the entire channel to position itself properly in the YouTube algorithm. But now let's continue with this video about Invoice Ninja. Yeah, since everything seems to be fine with our Invoice Ninja installation, we can open a new tab and enter the IP address of our Nginx service, which is 192.168.200.27. And we know that it is listening on port 80, so just let's press enter and wait for things to happen. When you log in for the first time, it might take a few seconds, but you should get this login. And you know, in the script we had one section where we had our initial login. Let's just go there quickly. And we have that here in user email and in password. This is what we're going to be using now. So admin@example.com and the password here, and click on login. No, we don't want to save this. And we have successfully logged in for the first time on Invoice Ninja. Now there is a little startup or getting started wizard running, and our company name is of course not untitled company name, sondern but it is whatever you want to enter, example.com, whatever. Now you can adjust the default language. Let's leave it in English, and your currency. If you are in the US, of course, it will be US dollar. Otherwise, you have quite the list available here, which is a little bit difficult to navigate, but you can also type the currency name, like euro, for example. Then you have that. Let's leave it on US dollars. Click on Save. Now we have our user interface. One more word about the user interfaces. There are currently 2 user interfaces. One is, I forgot the name, something with an R. And there is also the old Flutter-based user interface, which you can access via this icon here on the top left side or top right side. In this new interface, there's always this purchase white label button everywhere. It really works on my nerves. Also, a few things don't work properly yet. That's why I personally like switching back over to the old Flutter-based user UI, which takes a while to load, yes, but it is a bit easier to navigate. We have to log in again. There we are. This is a little bit the different layout. It boils down to your own taste. If you want to go back to the React, this was the name, the React web app, you can do this by clicking on this icon here. And of course, they still have their upgrade thingy where you can buy their license for $30 for the year, and it will be white labeled, and there will be no Invoice Ninja icon anywhere, which is on the customer facing pages. If you can live with the Invoice Ninja references everywhere, don't bother. If it bugs you, just pay them their $30 per year. Anyway, here we are at home basically, and now you can start making it your own. I suggest to click on settings and filling in the company details first. Like for example, the company name, you can always change this. You can adjust everything here. You can read yourself what they want. You can adjust the address, which is quite helpful if you're sending out invoices. You can upload a logo from your local system. You can set certain defaults, like for example the invoice payment terms, which is quite cool, like for example net 30 days, how long quotes valid, and so on. Then you can verbally describe your invoice terms, for example, and you can also upload certain files which might be important if you send out invoices or quotes, and then you can include these. Click on Save to actually persist these changes, and then you can go on with the next settings. For example, user details. These are the details of the currently logged in user. Let's call him Max Grusp, and so on and so on. You know what to do there because this is your system. Click on Save to persist the data. Then localization, you can here change everything which we did in the beginning with this little wizard. You can change your currency. You can also adjust how your numbers are formatted. You can change your language, your time zone, your date format, very interesting. And for example, you can also use military time, which is not really a thing in normal environments in the Americas, but we use 24-hour display in Europe quite extensively. Then also you can, as I said, adjust the number formatting. And lastly, you can say which month is the first month of your year. For example, in certain countries, the tax year is not the calendar year, but for example, sometimes the tax year starts in March. So this is what you do here. Click on Save. Then next up, we have payment settings, very cool things. Just experiment with that yourself. Then, of course, we have tax settings, very important because our government always wants their part in it, and the earlier you do these things, the better it is. The more better, exactly. You can go through all these settings yourself, but I just wanted to give you a little impression or small impression of what is all possible. Then further down we have advanced settings as well, and it starts with invoice design. And here you have the option to actually choose different designs for your invoices and for your quotes and for whatever you have. And the cool thing is you can click on Show Preview, and then you will be presented with an example of what your particular document will look like. Something which is a little bit unusual is the navigation in this case, because you have this side menu here at the top. Last time I've seen that was actually with Infomix database of all places. But anyways, this is a long thing in the past. You can then also click on Customize, and then you basically copy a particular design, and then you can give it your own name. Let's call it Test. And once you've done this, you can click on Save, and this will be then persisted. From here on, you can go ahead and customize the body, the header, the footer, and the CSS of your invoice. And this way you can get a very streamlined thing for your actual purposes. So if you need additional data somewhere, or if you want to change the formatting or whatever, you can do that here. You can always switch the design, for example, to something else, like plain, for example, in this case. Takes a few seconds to load, and then you click on save, and then the test is overwritten with that. Again, these things bring different formattings everywhere, and you can create your own set of invoices. But if you are happy with the general settings, then you can go back, and actually work with the standard. And here you can actually also already change a lot of things, like, for example, general parts like colors, like formattings, like page sizes. For example, A4 might not be exactly what you need. You need either letter or legal, depending on where you are, for example, in the US. If you would like more information about how to configure and adjust the invoices or other forms, please leave me a note under this video, because I would like to know, would you be interested in taking this Invoice Ninja thing a step further and make it a series? Would you like to know more about the intricacies, how to configure this thing, how to really make it something you can use in your own environment? And would you like me to actually, in a video series, explain how these things work? And if you do so, please let me know what would be the most important thing you would like to know, maybe 3 or 4 things. So then once I see your feedback, I will then come up with a series of videos about these topics. Okay, these were the settings for the invoice design. Then we have something which is called custom fields, which is pretty cool. For several sections, you can create your custom fields. For example, for company data, if there are certain information which is not represented in the general settings, then you can do that here. For example, bank data or whatever it is. This applies to company, it is for clients, available for clients, for products, for invoices, and so on and so on. So you have quite nifty functionality to provide your own customized data. Then there is also a very important setting for generated numbers. How do you need your, for example, for your number pattern for invoices? It can be a simple counter, but you can also enhance this with years, dates, whatever, and you can come up with your own particular setup here. Also, since most probably you already have an invoicing application, you can have your counter start with a higher number than 1, because double invoice numbers is definitely a no-go. Further than that, you can also, of course, customize your email settings, for example, from name, who is the reply to, and so on and so on. Maybe in a different video we can talk about these things. Then the last thing I would like to mention for today is the user management, and you can create new users and give them certain permissions as well. Like, for example, administrator, they can use the dashboard, they can look at reports and so on. But this is not the only thing. You can take this a few steps further, and you can create certain permissions for different areas of the application. Quite self-explanatory what we have here. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, it is very important that you configure your email settings properly before you create a new user, because this application wants to send out a confirmation to the new user and have them confirm their identity via a double opt-in by email. So if you haven't set up the email service correctly, this request will go nowhere and the user will not be able to log in at all. This brings me to the end of this video about Invoice Ninja, and as mentioned before, if you would like to see further videos about Invoice Ninja, please leave me a short message under the video with a few suggestions what you would like to see next. And if this video was helpful or at least fun to watch, please remember to leave me a like, because as I said, this doesn't only help this video but the entire channel to position itself properly in the YouTube algorithm. For today, thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.